Thank you so much, Heather. To help us analyse the current situation, we're now joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram Weekly Managing Editor Khalid Dawood. Welcome, sir, to Qnews. Firstly, sir, let's start off by asking how crucial is Egypt's 18th aid convoy in addressing the current humanitarian emergency in Gaza? And what insights does it provide about Cairo's long-term approach when it comes to the situation in Gaza?
Well, thanks for having me, Rehan. I mean, again, since the Israelis have closed down the border after resuming the war on March 1st, Egypt has been pressing to allow aid into Gaza by all means. Of course, there was an escalation in the famine that Gaza has been suffering the recent few weeks, which led basically to a world uproar and demands for using all means available in order to let in immediately aid into Gaza. And due to Egypt's communications and contacts with other world countries, particularly in Europe and all over the world, we've seen an uptick in the countries that have been dropping aid on Gaza through the air, even though that kind of method is limited and is very costly. But at the end of the day, considering the situation in Gaza and the fact that young children have been dying out of famine, the Palestinian Health Ministry have just released that over 120 children have lost their lives over the past few months due to the lack of food and medicine in Gaza. So while on one hand, Egypt has been working as a mediator on the political aspect of reaching a ceasefire, it's been demanding at the same time that there should be more aid getting into Gaza immediately. We saw Egyptians or Air Force taking part in the airdrop of aid on Gaza, and we've also seen, due to Egyptian contacts with the Israeli side, a few hundred trucks getting into Gaza as well with urgently needed food and medical supplies. So, I mean, again, besides the political important role Egypt is playing in making sure that we have a permanent end for the war in Gaza, Egypt has been giving a prime concern to the humanitarian issue while recognizing, Riham, that the plight of the Palestinian people is not because of a natural disaster. It's not a humanitarian issue about dealing with an earthquake or a flood. We're dealing with a genocide war that Israel has been launching against the Palestinian people over the past 2 years. And this war is intentional, determined, and well planned on the Israeli side. So the solution is not to provide just more food to the Palestinian people, even though that's mostly needed, but the more important aspect to ease permanently the lives of the Palestinians is to end the war. I mean,
Yes.
that's really the prime concern for the Egyptian side.
Well, as you said, the primary concern here is to end the war and the aggression on the Gaza Strip. Now, let's talk about the day after. What potential outcomes could come from Egypt's planned, reconstruction conference? And in what ways might it influence Gaza's post-conflict rebuilding, as well as the structures of governance?
Well, I mean, again, you know well that Egypt was a pioneer on this level in terms of hosting the conference in March on the reconstruction plan for Gaza, while not deporting or moving any Palestinian outside of their territories. That was a very important aspect of the Egyptian plan because, as you know, as soon as President Trump, U.S. President Donald Trump, got into the White House, he came up with this bizarre proposal about turning Gaza into Rivera of the Middle East and moving the Palestinians outside Gaza so that it turns into a wonderful, fascinating construction project run by the Americans and owned by the Americans, which is basically illusions. At the end of the day, I mean, there was no concrete plan, but immediately the Israeli side picked up Trump's proposals, and it became an official Israeli policy to allegedly voluntarily encourage Palestinians to leave their homeland. While, of course, there is nothing voluntary about it. When you starve the people, when you kill them every day and in such a manner, of course, there's nothing voluntary about trying to leave Gaza one way or the other. So that's why the Egyptian plan was very important. It's very detailed with a specific budget, with a specific timeline. And that's why this plan that was presented in March gained the support of the Islamic countries, African countries, and after that we saw statements coming from key European nations, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, you name it, all key European countries declared their support for this Egyptian construction plan that was announced a few months ago. So now the priority again is to end the war, because without ending the war on a long-term basis, there's not going to be a chance to implement any plans for the reconstruction of Gaza. And equally important to the reconstruction plan is, as you mentioned, the day after, the arrangements for the day after also include the body or the entity that's going to govern Gaza. And on that respect as well, Egypt insists that any future plans for Gaza must include the Palestinian Authority as the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, in order to make sure the Israelis do not carry out their plan to exclude the Palestinian Authority and to kill any hope for the establishment of a Palestinian state. And that's why we've heard from Foreign Minister Abdel Ati about Egypt's plan to train Palestinian police forces, but under the umbrella of the Palestinian Authority.
Well, sir, as you said, that the essential thing here right now is to end this violence and reach a ceasefire. Now, the ceasefire agreements have been ever so elusive, but now Hamas's stance matches 98% of the Israelis' previous position. What are the current main obstacles that are hindering an immediate agreement on a lasting ceasefire? Because Hamas has agreed, we're still waiting on the Israeli side to agree. What will stop this?
Well, I mean, as you know, it's all about the extremist policies of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who puts his political career and future above the interests of the Palestinian people, of course, but even above the interests of the Israeli people. As we have seen, these huge, unprecedented numbers, you talk about 300,000 people demonstrating on Sunday, and probably we'll see continuation of this protests and strikes that are demanding the Israeli government, Benjamin Netanyahu in particular, to accept the deal that's being put on the table. But of course, on the other side, there is a lot of pressure that's coming from the fanatic extremist ministers inside Netanyahu's government, particularly people like Smotrich, like Ben-Gvir, who have been threatening that they would pull out from the Israeli government in case Israel or the Netanyahu accepted a ceasefire plan that does not their wish to continue occupation of Gaza and even start rebuilding settlements in Gaza, which Israel destroyed after unilaterally pulling out from the Gaza Strip back in 2005. So those kinds of pressures that Netanyahu is confronting, and at the same time his own extremist ideology, and saying proudly that he has a historic and a spiritual mission to build the so-called Greater Israel, and at the same time he prides himself that he's the one who basically killed the hope and the dream to establish a Palestinian state. So that's basically the key problem facing the implementation and a long-term agreement. Probably Netanyahu and his extremist coalition, even though he said that he wants a comprehensive agreement, he wants all the hostages to be released at once. Right now, you know, he's trying to find a way
making
out.
it difficult. Yes, he's making the it's a tactic to maneuver out of a ceasefire agreement. Your point is clear there, sir. That was Khalid Dawood from Cairo, Al-Ahram Weekly managing editor. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News.